am not a develop. I am not a developer. I am not a coder, but I hire thousands of them. And I've hired, I would say, probably 300 to 400 just in the last year at Fortune 500 companies, whether it's Meta, Morgan Stanley in New York, Microsoft, Apple, any big Fortune 100 client, Fortune 500, we're going to work with. So we look at GitHubs every day, if not 20 to 30 sometimes my recruiting team. So for us, GitHub is something that with the emerging technology, where a lot of our candidates are utilizing. So I'm going to give you an overview as we get into it, more again, an introduction of what it is, how you can work with it, and again, some good best practices about the tool, about what it, again, how it overlaps, especially for those of you, again, this is going to be more geared towards somebody looking to get into maybe development, get into a background. If you're a 7-10 year developer with Java, a lot of this might be redundant. But again, for those of you that are new, where to get started in GitHub, what actually it is, maybe you're curious to see even if it's something that you should be utilizing. This will be very beneficial for you. I'm going to stop there. And real quick, like I said, again, I hire thousands of, not thousands, but hundreds of these people on a yearly basis. So we look at GitHubs, like I said before, all the time. So here's what our breakout's going to be. First, we're going to go into talking about what GitHub is, why you should, then we're going to go into why you should create a GitHub profile, setting up your GitHub, and then again, how you want to utilize it for when you're job hunting. I will preface this when we go set up a GitHub, we're not going to individually make a GitHub because it takes time, but I'm going to show you again the link how to do it, what you'll need, and some best practices too while you're doing it. And then also, Karen, too, I'll send this out when I finish. This will have your resource links to that if you have any issues with GitHub, who to reach out to, how to do it. So this will all be included too in the slide deck. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. What is GitHub? It is a web-based platform that uses Git, a version control system for tracking changes in code. It allows developers to collaborate, share projects, and store their code online. It's essential for managing code in open source and team environments. It could be individually based for projects that you're, again, call them fun projects. It could be for professional businesses where they are working in a team environment. And again, it is one of the biggest repositories now of coding there is in the world. So just below is a nice example. And again, I'll show you some profiles as we finish up the presentation, but this is just a good screenshot of, again, one of our current consultants. And you can see his GitHub. He's got tons of good stuff on here, right? So essentially, it looks like similar to almost like a LinkedIn blend, but it will have your name. It will have some good information about where you're located, your contributions, all kinds of repositories too about what you're working on. And then again, as we go into this, I'll show you some couple different things that, again, you can do with your profile. So as we talk about GitHub, there's a couple things that you need to know what it actually is, because essentially it's a version control, which is, again, a system that helps software developers track and manage changes to computer programs. So as you're updating code, this will actually go back to the home base and update for you. So essentially it allows developers to constantly make improvements and changes to a software code after it creates it. Essentially this GitHub platform is great because it utilizes an open share platform, or you can also do private or public. What a version control system is, aka GitHub, it's there to, again, make sure that it's a store repository. And then again, you can download the versions of it, you can work on different types of coding, then you can upload. So knowing what a version control system is key to understanding what GitHub actually is. And then we're going to get into what Git is too. Git is a DevOps tool used for the source code management. So Git and GitHub is different. So to the left is a nice little breakout explaining the differences. I'm not going to read it verbatim, but I'll take a couple minutes just so y'all can kind of take a look. And then again, the version control system that I just went over is to your right. So essentially it's a repository. Again, the big advantage of this platform is it allows people to work together seamlessly. and then also make recommendations, make comments, a lot of different things that you can do with it. Okay. Why should you use GitHub? For collaboration, especially if you're working together on different coding, you want to work on different projects. There's a lot of different things that you can utilize, especially when you're getting started, right? And I'll go again towards the end of the presentation, actually into the tool to show you a couple things that you can do with it. But it's a great repository to, again, also see progress, see what other people are doing. And it also allows you to review code. Other people review your code to see how you're doing, to see essentially, again, what your progress is, the level you're at. And that's why it's really important for us as recruiters from my profession to look at GitHubs because we can see the quality of a candidate. We can see what they're working on, what they're able to do, what level they're at. So we're looking at GitHubs to essentially see the performance of again of an applicant. With a lot of you that are coming with a lot of non-professional experience, this is a great place to showcase your talent, especially if you haven't been able to work in, let's say, Java or one of the, key languages at a professional level from, let's say, working for like a Microsoft or a Meta. This is a great place to start practicing, start utilizing the tool to, again, hone in on your craft. And the nice thing, like I said, it keeps track of all your changes. You can showcase your portfolio, your projects, your contributions. And like I said, a lot of companies are utilizing it now. And it's becoming a requirement for a lot of our customers, as I would call our clients, to actually know how to utilize Git because you're essentially working in a lot of team-based environments. So for instance, all of you on your phone probably have a couple different applications. Airbnb is one that I love to use. It's one of my giant customers, right? So if you're working on, let's say, developing a new feature for Airbnb on the mobile app on your phone, what you can do now with GitHub is you can work together through that system and update code continuously. They call it team coding. And that way, again, you can have individuals working on the same set simultaneously very easy. So again, I always like to throw a nice little humor in here, a little boss baby, but this is, again, a little repository of how this works.
Excuse me, Jared.
Yeah.
I didn't know, are you gonna wait for questions at the end? I saw someone put the question in the chat, but they put it to me directly. So be mindful of that, folks. But maybe Jared is waiting till the end to do questions in the chat
I
and Q&A.
I can't see them, Karen. I can stop real quick and take a
It's
break.
not your fault. The person erroneously sent it to me directly.
Yeah, I can take a couple questions real quick. I don't
Yeah,
mind
but
to
I'll
take a
just tell
stop.
you what it says.
Yeah.
I'll copy it for everyone in the chat, and I'll read it out loud here. So this is the question to Jared, and this came from Giovanni Russell, and it says, I wanted to know if you can incorporate a split and GitHub to do your programming. I just posted there, you could see for yourself.
You want to use the AI plugin? That's what Replit is, correct? It's an AI plugin. You can utilize plugins within GitHub if that's what you're getting at, because that's what Replit is, essentially is an AI tool to help coding. If you want to specifically ask me the question too, if that wasn't the correct answer that you were looking for, but yes, you can incorporate Replit and a couple other tools too for AI. I'll get more into that to the end too.
Yeah, and folks, feel free to put some of your questions in the chat if you want, but Gerald will have time for questions after based on his presentation.
Yep.
Thanks, Jared.
Yeah, and just to preface to your team, like I said before, I'm not a developer. I don't use this to showcase my talents as a coder. I use it to, again, hire people. So a lot of it, you have like questions about, languages or integrating different, AI tools with helping your coding. Unfortunately, those are things that I can get one of my developers to help answer and send you back a list, Karen. So if you have questions specifically, again, I can answer this one real quick though too. Do you look for that get people hired? Python's a big one right now. Um, that's probably, I would say, one of the most common languages. Just depends if you're working on front end or back end. So there's a lot of big languages now, but Python's one. C languages, if you're working in Azure or working like a Microsoft platform, are big. C Sharp, again, just C itself. Java's a big one though too. Everybody should know Java. But I would say Java, Python I would start with, and then probably get into some of the C languages. What I tell you, for those of you trying to get hired, when you're looking for a specific language to learn, you really want to focus on one. A lot of companies in these Fortune 500s utilize multiple languages, right? So for instance, I mentioned a company like Apple. They within one team could be working on, C sharp. They could also be working on Python. They could be working on a couple of different things, right? So you really want to hone on one that you're very good at because when you're interviewing with a Fortune 500, they're not going to typically make you code with 4 different languages. They're going to tell you to pick your best language and they're going to either make you take a hacker rank or do a coding exercise with one of their senior developers. So specifically, it's more what you feel comfortable doing if you want to pick a language. But the best advice I can give you from hiring thousands of these people is be really good at one first before you start trying to dabble in others. Because what happens is if you can't pass coding exercise with one language, your interviews aren't going to go any farther. If anybody's got any more questions too, feel free real quick. I don't mind taking a break. We're about halfway through the presentation. We have plenty of time. Alex, did that answer your question? Or do you have any other questions that you wanted to ask? Good. Okay. Just some best practices real quick that I put together. Always put a bio. And again, if you can see the next slide on my view, you can't quite yet. I'll kind of go over this again for the actual bio, what it should look like. And again, relevant skills. And of course, you want to include links to your noteworthy projects, right? Especially for those of you that don't have corporate experience. These are big things that you want to make sure that you have is good links to your good projects that show your coding skills. Now, again, it's not unprofessional to put some of if you're working on some, fun stuff like video game projects like that to have it as long as it's relevant. And if it's not, it's something that you're probably going to want to hold off showcasing right now if you are in the looking for a career and that's why you're utilizing it. So yeah, start small is a big one here. A lot of people go in and just start searching for projects to work on. Know your limitations when you start. And that way, again, you can utilize the tool correctly. And I'll show you that towards the end, what I mean by that. But sometimes you'll work on these projects with large sets of data, or again, that have some extensive coding needed. And that's stuff that essentially, again, that can put yourself in some frustrating moments where you're not able to actually look at the code or correctly code. So, document your codes big, write meaningful comments, network too. You really want to make sure that again you're commenting, you're adding value. And then it's like I said, you can use it as a network too to meet people that can help coach you, educate you. Then you could also do the same too. But yeah, look at this is a big one is learning from pull request, right? If you specifically see some type of code that you like, or you're wondering how they got to that, again, answer why they did it, ask questions, right? And that's where a lot of people, when they're getting into development, really again stand out is people who do something and know how to explain it. That's where when you're getting interviewed and looking for jobs, a lot of these people are going to ask about your thought process, right? So how do you get good at doing that is you start asking people when you're becoming a developer what their thought process was, why they made those decisions, why you use that type of language, or hey, why'd you use that type of command? Because when you're interviewing, especially starting out, they're going to be looking at your thought process. A lot of them are not going to expect you to be able to code at expert level, especially if you've only been in maybe 3 to 4 months into this skill set. Now, what they're going to be looking for is if, again, they can coach you, they can train you. Also, you're aware of what you're doing. A lot of people struggle to get jobs in development starting off is because they're not able to explain why they're doing the things. They'll get on an interview, someone will ask it maybe, hey, do some Python coding, do some Java. Hey, look at this. And they're not able to explain why they're doing things. So learn, utilize a tool to also understand why people are doing things that will help you for your thought process also too. I'm gonna stop there real quick. Does anybody got any questions real quick? Let's see.
Yeah, you do have one in the chat.
Yeah. Yeah, so again, you can upload your personal projects are great, especially too if it showcases anything that you've done. I can look at your class project too if you want to share me your GitHub after to see, but If it's valuable and shows coding or shows anything again in the realm, yeah, I would definitely upload it because a lot of you coming out of college aren't going to have like again a Microsoft on your resume, right? So how do you get in front of them? By showcasing what you did in school, and then again, obviously where your skills are based on, especially when they're looking for people, if you're looking for jobs right out of college. Then I'll show you a resume too to answer your question. I believe it's Najeen. I'll show you a resume too of somebody that's more again at the level of coming out of school and how they showcase it. But typically on their resume at the very bottom, and again, a lot of my workshops before were showing resumes and going over LinkedIn's, but at the bottom of a resume, you can put projects that again relate to GitHub. But essentially, what you'll do, and we'll get into the end of this presentation, is where to put your GitHub link, but it should be on your resume. And that way, your projects, again, you click on your GitHub link on the resume, and then essentially it will open up your entire GitHub portfolio. But yes, any projects that you did in school that you want to upload are perfectly fine too. Personal projects, I would stay away from if they're not relevant to professional coding levels. If they're just like fun things that might cause a reaction by somebody that's not in a positive light, I would hold off. This one. So you'll see in how you can learn about Java and learn about programming language Vishwa in about 20 minutes. You can use a lot of GitHub to learn about a lot of different things. HackerRank's another one, and I'll plug it. I plugged it before. Vishwa is get on HackerRank, create a profile. You can do a lot of coding, take a lot of exercises on it, and you can practice your skills. HackerRank's a great one because you can search all the tools. And I'll do a quick thing, Karen, to remind me, please, when we're done, to show you what HackerRank is, Vishwa, and I'll show everybody on here. It's another one that you would want to use because it really helps you practice too. HackerRank isn't needed for a full class, but I can do a couple minutes at the end. I don't use leak code. It could be HackerRank's one that we utilize a lot because a lot of corporate companies utilize it. So like Microsoft, Airbnb, like I mentioned, a lot of them will actually use HackerRank to test our consultants. So HackerRank's the one that I live in. I do not live in leak code, but I can take a look. I'm assuming it probably is, but I'm never safe to assume. Oh, I'd like to how I can upgrade my resume plus GitHub, like building or joining community. I'll get to that MD at the end. So how what you can do. So next slide. So here's an example of a profile. This person's going to be more senior. If you look too, they got a lot of links to, again, some stuff that they've worked that they've also, again, collaborated on. They've got a bunch of blog postings on here. He's got his LinkedIn, his again, it's not Twitter anymore. I think it's called X. So this screenshot's a little bit older. I apologize for that. But again, it's got a lot of good links, good picture, right? You know where he's focused on. We do actually a lot of hiring in Brazil, my company. So we focus in US 75% of the time. Then we also do a lot of Brazil. And then again, Philippines, if you're wondering why I have somebody from Brazil on here. But again, this is a great homepage for a profile. And I'll, again, here at the end, we'll go actually into the tool and show you a couple of my current consultants too. They gave me permission to utilize and show their GitHubs. I'm going to look at questions real quick while we take a look at this one. And y'all can see what the actual interface looks like. So setting up a GitHub, we're not going to walk it through. I'm not going to do it with you, but again, if you want to do it, here's just again, we'll send this out after the presentation, the slide, so you can just click. This will be the little link right here to where again, you have to download Git first. And then once you have Git, then you can go ahead and sign up for your GitHub account because Git's actually what's going to be saving and going to be recording your data, your coding. And then again, fancy words here, but essentially SSH keys are just credentials that make sure your network's secure. Oh, We will send this out, like I said before, but if you want, just remember install Git first, then create your account on GitHub, and then set up your authentication, your network protocol. And again, another thing that again will include too is your resources that you'll need in case you have any questions. And there's a bunch of repositories in there too that will help. Oh, Alex, another good question. This happens a lot, right? This is very common when we get in recruiting. My recruiters get probably daily. So question, let's say the person has the requirements for the skills for the job and doesn't have the certain degree. You should always apply, Alex, and then you should have the recruiter be telling you if it's required or not. For a lot of full-time roles, when they say they need a bachelor's degree, typically what happens with any hiring company or any, again, role, that's a requirement by HR that's given. And the only way that, again, that could be lifted is if, again, it's noted that equal experience or equivalent experience is okay. But if a rec says bachelor's degree, right, that would be, again, having to verify if it's 100% needed by HR. I would tell you if you have the skills to always apply, and a recruiter might call you and say, hey, do you have a degree? No, I don't. Unfortunately, it's required. Or, hey, if you have enough experience, we can ask the manager if they're okay without it. So always apply, but do know that typically those are HR documents when they're doing onboarding that they will need to verify it. But that's something that you want to clarify with your recruiter when you talk to them, because on any job posting, you're getting that from corporate who fills it out. So I would tell someone to always apply and then just be very clear when you are applying to let them know that you do not have it, but you have the skill set. Because if you go through the process and they do require it and you don't have it, unfortunately, they'll withdraw your offer. So, in long story short, it depends on the employer, but you always want to ask, especially if you have the skill set. Good question, though.
Just real quickly, Jared, this is a side note. I saw this message there from the AI about my recording at the limit. I'm
I
not too
saw that.
familiar with that. I'm not
They
sure.
give you
I may
30
stop.
minutes, I think, or you have to pay for it. So
I'm not aware of that with our plan. I will say though, I previously made the recording to my computer. Now I did to the cloud, so maybe I don't have the storage there. I'm not sure, but in any event, I might stop and re-record. I'm not sure, but go ahead. I just wanted to point
no,
that.
I saw it too, and I was curious of where it was coming from. But like I said, I'll send the PowerPoint out right after today. I've already got it ready to go. I can send, so at least we'll have that for all of us, for all the
Sure,
joiners too,
absolutely. All
because a
right.
lot of this stuff they're going to want to have, especially when they're setting it up and what steps to follow.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, and then of course for how to utilize it for job hunting, right? So you want to create repositories for your personal projects, right? We've gone through this. A lot of you asked that question, right? Design, develop, and implement solutions across different technologies. That's what it's here for, right? It's here to showcase what you've done. Personal projects are great, especially too if they have a lot of depth to them. And that way, like I said before too, is you really want to focus on just a couple languages. And I'll show you how to kind of search languages on the platform if you want to look for different things that you can contribute to or to help with. But personal projects are great, and to do as much again. And I'll show you on a portfolio. Actually, I'll go back real quick. If you look at the first one, if you look at contributions right here, this is somebody that is extremely active on GitHub. They're literally active almost every single week, if not every single day. When you are new to GitHub or you're looking for a role without a lot of corporate experience yet, activity and contributions here are big. What you want to stay away from and what doesn't look good to a recruiter is somebody who's fresh, who starts at GitHub and then it just sits there. Or their projects are just incomplete or unprofessional and there's no examples, right? So if you want to utilize it just to have fun, that's great. You just wouldn't want to show it on a resume. This contribution piece is big, especially showing that, again, you're involved a lot. And coding in IT is a big network. So it's really good for networking. And if you're contributing a ton like this person was, this will give you a really good chance to also meet people, through Discord, where you can also hopefully get some referrals or some good references to get yourself into the limelight of a hiring manager. That's the whole goal for this, is to give you, again, a showcase where if you don't have the corporate experience, you can still showcase that you have a talent. And it'll also help you work and again, work on similar things that you might come across in an interview. You can also use GitHub too, that if you're on a role or on a project where you're stuck, you can upload that to the repository to get people's suggestions and ideas on how to, again, solve your problems. So you want to maintain it. Again, it's one of the big bullets here in the middle. You want to maintain your profile. You want to keep it up to date. You want to make sure there's nothing that was, again, faulty, that your links work. It's, again, you're staying active on it, especially if you're continuously in the job market too. But highlight your skills, be clear, document it, show where you're, again, your focus is. Like I said before, a lot of times people coming fresh into development, they put 20 different languages, right? There are some really good ones, like I said before, to learn Python, Java. There's a new one. Golang is a big one too, that if again, it's a new up and coming. If you want to get into like iOS or Android development, there's Kotlin for Android, and for iOS, there's Swift. So focus on a couple things that you really like instead of trying to learn 20 to 30. And then when you're on your GitHub, be concise where your skills are so it's clear, and work on projects that match those skills. And then last bullet, probably the most important thing, right? We did it on our last presentation about how to have LinkedIn underneath your name on your resume. And then again, I'll kick out his project shortly and show you how it should look on a resume, but you want your GitHub link right on your resume, especially when you're applying to roles without a lot of corporate experience. That will be your showcase of, again, what you've worked on relevant to the job that you're applying to. But have it right on the resume, especially if, again, you've got some good work on there that you want to highlight to hiring teams. I will say, as a recruiter, director, and having my recruiters, every time there is a GitHub on a resume, my recruiter will look at it. There are times when they look at the GitHub and it's just blank and there's projects that are very basic and the person's supposed to have 6 years of experience. That's when we get concerned. When we see the profile, like I showed you before, with all the green on it, all the projects, that's clear what they're working on, that matches their resume, that to us is somebody's at the level of, again, a Microsoft or, again, one of our clients, whether they've applying for a role with 1 year or a role with 5 years. So we do look for all the green dots. We look to, again, for precision on their profile, what they're actually working on that's consistent with what their resume is. So if you put on your resume, you're really good at Python, and then all your projects are with like XML or like HTML, like a whole different skill set, right? That's something that you're going to want to modify so it matches your resume. And then again, so they're going to be reviewing your code. A lot of times when you're freshers, they're going to want you to, again, send your GitHub over. Sometimes even when you're applying now, just so y'all are aware, there'll actually be a link to include your LinkedIn or your GitHub on the application, and they're going to go and review your code. And that's why they want to take a look at it. So make sure that, again, that you're showing evidence of your skills within, again, your GitHub. The collaboration skills are big too, because as I said before, a lot of these roles now are doing team coding. They're working together. 8 to 10 people will share responsibilities of creating a new application for, again, an Airbnb. Hardly does it ever fall on one person. So collaboration skills are big, and GitHub's a great place to, again, collaborate. Even with, if you're on a project together with some students, y'all could work through GitHub to, again, work together in coding. So it's a great place to, again, learn how to team code too. And then obviously too, learning new technologies, right? Like, again, GitHub's new. I mean, it's said it's been around, GitHub's been around for 2005, but the last 3 to 4 years have been a big push for it, just because it's a good repository for it. And when languages keep coming out, right, there's all kinds of frameworks that go away, that come out. It's a great place to learn them, know how people are utilizing them, why they're utilizing them, right? So again, I won't drop a bunch of languages if y'all aren't really, too savvy with like React and a lot of different types of, again, frameworks, front end or back end. But it's a great place to learn what they actually do and what they're utilized for it. And then you can see why people are utilizing them. And then again, final tips real quick, and then we'll get to actually see some GitHub. Quality over quantity is big, right? When you're contributing, make sure it's valuable. Privacy settings is another big thing, right? Like, again, if you employers, it's got to be public so they can see it. If it's private, they can't. So make sure that, again, you can mark some of your personal stuff that you don't want them seeing private. Just make sure you have some good public projects too that they can review. Another thing is just to regular update it. Always make sure that you're working on it. Again, updating your code, especially if, again, you're getting comments, you're staying active on the actual site. It's a great place to keep contributing and keep learning. So I'm going to get out of here now. Don't need to say thank you quite yet because we're not quite done. So now I'm going to get into a couple of GitHubs real quick. So Kevin works for us. He's one of our consultants. I would prefer if no one follows him quite yet, but I will show you. This is, again, a very, very good developer. And this would be somebody that, again, if I was looking for a junior person, probably not going to be the best profile to show, but this is a very good senior person, 10 years. He's got really good coding. So like when you look at his actual repositories, his information is really strong because he was actually working at Cox Media and they were utilizing this for JavaScript coding to work together in teams. So if you see, you'll see a lot of repositories on this type of profile. He doesn't have a ton of consistent activity because he was actually using this for a corporate setting. He was not utilizing this to get a job. So that's the difference with this type of profile. And then I've got another one. Was somebody that was fresh and just started getting into GitHub in November. Then it was consistent for a couple months. We placed him again, another one of our clients. He's a recent, again, couple skills that he just honed in on JavaScript. And again, a lot of these are front end developers, again, UI space. And he was doing some contributions. He's been a little active. We just hired this person a couple weeks ago. So again, he got new to the platform. He's made 67 contributions in the last year. So not a ton of followers, but pretty good profile picture. He's got where he's strong at. You see a lot of JavaScript. So we know what he's working on and we know what he was good at. And this role that we placed him for was a JavaScript role. So, and I'll show you his resume real quick. And that way you can see it how it looks. And I apologize that this is not going fast. Okay. Well, that didn't work out successfully. I think it timed out on me, unfortunately, Karen. But I'm going to stop sharing real quick and just pull this resume up, and then I'm going to go right back to sharing for 1 second.
While Jared is doing that, folks, I'm gonna put the link to Wednesday's info session. Well, not info session, it's a workshop, but it's mostly informational, I should say. I'll put the Zoom registration link in the chat for anyone who's interested in that. And again, the topic is your pathway to tech. Okay. Anyone is still having issues with the attendance kiosk, it's okay, you disregard, that's just easier for us that way, but we'll try to cross-reference with the Zoom. The thing with the Zoom, sometimes students, they don't use their QC email to register on Zoom, but we'll try to capture you there. And you can also email me individually to let me know that you were in attendance.
Okay. Like I said, please don't reach out to him. I wanted to show it in a raw format just because, again, you can see how this came to us when he applied for a job. And if you see, the GitHub portfolio link is right here at the bottom. Clearly, you can click on it. You make sure it's clickable and the hyperlink's correct. And if also too, again, the one thing about this resume, I know this isn't a resume workshop. A lot of times when you're a developer, when you're into getting into IT roles, less is more. So this resume is only one page and this person has 10 years of experience. The 20-page resumes are very hard for people to go through, especially in IT, to know where you're strong at. So this person's very specific on their skill sets of where they're strong. You see JavaScript, which you saw on his GitHub, is all over every job that he's worked on has JavaScript. So when my recruiters are looking at JavaScript, they're going to click on his GitHub, see this was the JavaScript role. They're going to look at where he's contributed to. His repositories are all JavaScript. So this is a great example of, again, mirroring your GitHub with your experience, contributing, and again, showing how to utilize the tool. Now, this little search tool up here is nice. So like, let's say you just want to look at some different types of coding and see some examples of some projects people are working on. You can use the search function. You can see languages to the left right here, different types of projects, repositories, right? You want to be probably more specific, and that will get you broken down the different types of things that you can look at. You can see the size of it. You can see, again, all kinds of different things that you can search through with the tool. If you like somebody's contributions, you can actually click on their profile. You can take a look at what they're doing. So that's what's really cool about the interface too. And it's worldwide, which is really cool too. It's not just people in the US. You're going to get users from all over, again, the world who are doing different types of development. So it's a great research tool, great resource to learn, to see how people are working, utilizing different skill sets, different tools, what they're working on. Again, there's a lot of ways you can contribute and comment, but overall, like I said before, GitHub's a great tool, especially if you're getting started. And again, here's your launch page. It's really easy to sign up. You just put your email in, try the Copilot. It makes it really, really easy for you to get started. And again, it will really help you with the coding aspect of it, how to utilize it. And if my presentation wasn't super beneficial for you, there's always YouTube. I'm just kidding. But feel free to always, again, like I said, there's a lot of good resources on this. Now, GitHub is very big. A lot of different people tell you how to utilize it if you're coming from a developer background. But the biggest thing is start uploading your projects on here and start, again, exploring, looking at different types of, again, tools that they utilize, especially if you're looking for different types of languages to get good at. It's a great place. So I'm going to stop there and stop sharing. And what questions y'all got for me? I hope that was beneficial. I was a little faster than I expected, Karen.
No, that's okay. I mean, since you're on here, they can open their microphone and ask question, come in camera, that would be great, or post your question in the chat. It's an opportunity to have your questions answered, learn. And as Jerry said, so this is part potentially one. He could bring on a developer at some point for a part two, where it'll take I guess a more deeper dive into GitHub and developing Jared. So we can always look into that at a later date. So keep that in mind, everyone.
Yeah, and use Copilot, especially if you want to look at other people's projects and see how you can help and contribute. So that's a good way to start. And then Raha, if you want me to critique your GitHub, send it over to me in LinkedIn. Friend request me on LinkedIn, and I'll plug it again if I don't have it copied and pasted. Send it to me, and then I'll have a recruiter reach out to you and tell you what their thoughts on what they would do differently. And that's the best people for me to have critiquing of any of y'all's GitHubs. I'll have one of my recruiters, like I said before, I run a large recruiting team. They look at these more than I do, but they'll be able to easily help you critique your GitHub and what you should work on and give you some more direction.
Sounds good. And
I'm
for
always happy to look at resumes too, Alex. If you want to send me your resume too, I'll try to reach out. If I don't, one of my recruiters will. I will say, whenever y'all are sending anything, just make sure you have some context, like what you want me to look at or where you're having trouble. Or again, like if you're targeting something specific, that will help me give you a better response. Because if it's just, hey, look at my resume, that's tough. That's me just looking at maybe formatting. But if it's like, hey, I'm looking for a Python role, what can I do differently? Or hey, I'm looking for something in Java. Or hey, I want to get into help desk. Those are really would help me and help my recruiting team give you more insight on what direction to go. And the slideshow will be shared. Yes, I'll send it out. And if there's any issues, Karen, with it when I send it out, just let me know.
Yes, will do. You always do. Thank you for that. And I'm going to actually stop the recording here as we get into question and answers so that we don't have a long presentation of a lot of the nuances that will come up. So I'll stop right now.